Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I'm Tom.
We are Team Binge, and we are back after a little bit of a hiatus, and we are here to talk about Three Body Problem, the Netflix show. And Tom, I'm very excited to end our strike, which obviously a lot of people took account of and cared. Thank you, all of you that gave us letters wondering if we were still alive. Literally, no one reached out to us, which is fine. But Tom, I'm excited to talk about Three Body Problem with you because we have not really gone into depth on this, and so I'm excited to get your views. And honestly, I don't even know if I've named this right. Is it called Three Bodies Problem or Three Body Problem?
It is three body problem. Yes, yes, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. I only suffer from one body problem, and it's this body that I can't seem to keep in shape. So let's dive into this. For those of you that have never listened to our podcast before, we're Team Binge. We like to go through shows one episode at a time. Literally, we do not binge them. But this show, we binged, and so we are going to talk about the whole series. So if you have not watched every episode, if you're like thinking we're just going to talk about episode one, or we're just going to talk about the finale, or the penultimate episode, as I like to call it, that's not going to happen. We're going to talk about all of them. So, Tom, let's dive into this. I want to give you the floor because you are a huge Game of Thrones guy. And this show obviously has some ties to this. And so I think I enjoyed Game of Thrones, although I was late to the Game of Thrones bandwagon. Like, as a guy that probably came in with some baggage, how did we do here?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have watched this show if it wasn't for Benioff and Weiss, the two showrunners for Game of Thrones. They certainly had a knack for adapting book material, and then this whole series, this Three Body Problem, is a trilogy of science fiction books, right? So I was excited to get into it. Like you said, we thought about potentially potting on this, but when it all kind of released as one on Netflix, we watched maybe the first couple episodes. We're like, I'm not sure if this is one we want to do episodically. But I mean, I don't know. I thought this show was fine. I thought, I don't know. I got 99 problems, but a body wasn't one.
Oh, look at you. Look at you. Quoting Benjamin Franklin early in the pod. Incredible.
It was kind of fun going into it because I literally knew nothing. I thought Three Body Problem was going to be there's three murders and they're trying to solve them or something. I had no idea how like science fiction-y this whole got. And there were some fun parts. There were some good scenes. There were some good characters. I thought the acting was pretty well done. Benioff and Weiss certainly have a knack for, I think, some of the visuals and writing style. Obviously, that's more of adaptation than writing themselves. But I don't know. There's some fun stuff that we can kind of talk through. But I think overall, it wasn't necessarily to the Game of Thrones level by any means.
Sure.
How about you? What do you think?
Sure. Well, I, much like you, went into this not knowing anything. I obviously thought it was a menage a trois situation, or as you Americans like to say, threesome situation. It turned out to, we are a clean podcast, just in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah.
I did a poor job there, but I came into this not knowing anything. I feel like there's probably a select group of like hard sci-fi readers that were super like excited to watch this. And I was not one of them, although I do enjoy like reading sci-fi and fantasy. There is like a very hard sci-fi that at a certain point like I don't love. And so I enjoyed going into this without any baggage. I thought it was perfectly entertaining. Most of the times an episode ended and I wanted to roll into the next one. But it was pretty low stakes in the fact that if I was midway through the show and someone was like, hey, Netflix, you're going to have to pay $17 a month now instead of $16. And I was like, I'm canceling my membership. I wouldn't be like, but I want to finish Three Body Problem before I canceled it. So I know those are maybe contradictory. I enjoyed the show. I'm glad I watched the whole way through. There's some bonker stuff that I'm excited to talk to you about, but this was not like a prestige HBO show. And I do want to ask you this. Do you feel like if this had been put on HBO and released Sunday night, do you think that would have added a different element? Because I gotta be honest, I have Netflix. I've enjoyed Netflix. I don't think of Netflix as prestige TV, and when they dump all the episodes, it almost feels like, I don't know, a cheaper version of a good HBO show. And I don't know if that's just because of how I'm wired or if it does come down to quality. But I do feel like if this would have been HBO Sunday night, I would have had a higher, I guess, opinion of it, if that makes sense.
No, I think it definitely does. I mean, I thought Netflix was moving away from this model of like just dumping the whole show on their platform. I mean, it just doesn't seem to make much financial sense. Like, you want more ad money, you want people to stick around for longer. But I do think there's something to say about a slow burning show that gives you time to like think about it, as opposed to just you going through it in a weekend and then it's just out of sight, out of mind, and you're not talking about it with your buddies. You're not kind of diving into it, especially for a show like this that is more like mystery driven. I mean, some of the shows that we've done historically have been those ones that are dropping on a weekly basis. And I think it is a much more fun experience to talk through it with your buddies than binge it all at once and kind of grow through it.
Sure. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You read this book in its original Chinese translation, correct? Do I have that? Or Mandarin, I guess I should say.
I did not. As loyal podcast listeners know, I am not much of a reader, although I am on book 3 of the Silo series. So hopefully you're proud of me for that one. But I did not read these novels.
Tom doesn't read in any language.
No, that's not true. That's not true. If there's or if there's like small fine print on the screen, I will pause it, I will zoom it, and I will read that.
That's true. That's very true. You already talked about the showrunners, obviously having the Game of Thrones background. What I thought was fun is seeing some of our old pals from Game of Thrones show up in this. And so
many.
I'm sure you clocked them all.
Oh yeah. You had like Varys at some point in like the VR space that played like the king, or I don't know what he was. You got Samwell Tarly, you've got Davos, you've got the High Sparrow. I'm pretty sure Eddard Stark was in there. He was probably killed off at some point, maybe on the boat. I don't know.
So, okay, I want to ask this. Varys I did not clock. I have no idea where Varys. He's very distinct. Did he have hair in this, or was he bald?
He was like a pope-looking king in like the second level or third level of the VR stuff, and he had like, I think, a big beard, so he's easy to miss. So
I clocked Davos, I clocked Samwell Gamgee, obviously, and then so Mike Evans, the oil tycoon who meets a unfortunate demise by nanofiber, he was in Game of Thrones?
Yeah, he's the High Sparrow. So like later seasons, the one that spoiler alert, ends up taking on Cersei and all that kind of stuff. So
he's like I'm a poor man in a okay. I remember now. Because that guy's in a bunch of stuff and he looked very familiar, so I assumed, but I was not sure. You know who was not in Game of Thrones but should have been? Isa Gonzalez, our friend Augie. And so real fast, just so we can keep characters straight as we talk through this, Tom, I'm going to hit some things. Isa Gonzalez, Augie, she's the nanofiber inventor. Most of us know her from Ambulance, the great Michael Bay film with Jake Gyllenhaal, an incredible film that Andy and I will die on that hill. Tom, I know you thought it was garbage. I love Isa
like 8
Gonzalez.
hours long.
Oh, it's not long enough, honestly. I could drive around LA in that ambulance. She literally does surgery while talking to surgeons on a golf course. It's an incredible movie, Tom. But you were a big nanofiber guy. So did you relate to this character?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, her character was fine. I like the mystery that kind of gave her in the beginning, but then eventually I just don't think they gave her much to do. I didn't really understand the whole application of the nanofiber. I guess we'll get to it later with the use of it ultimately in the show, but I don't know. It didn't seem like something that could save the world like they meant it out to be.
Oh, I mean, she's putting it in one well at a time, Tom. She's saving the world. Clean drinking water is very important. As someone who lives on a well, I would love to have a nanofiber filter. All I can think about when this was her, because they originally, I don't feel like early on I knew that her thing was nanofiber. It didn't come until they cut that crystal. But there is a scene in an old Godzilla movie where the guy creates a string that's super I don't know, strong, we'll say, for lack of better word. Man, I'm good at this. And he goes out on a balcony and he puts this, like, it's essentially like a thread around him, and he's like leaning out in space to prove to his wife like how strong the thread is, and you can barely see the thread. Well, later on, they tie Godzilla up with it. So that's how it comes into play. That's all I could think about when we were talking about nanofiber. I was like, that guy in that black and white Godzilla movie from when I was a kid and it was on VHS, he already invented nanofiber. So
Goodness, I didn't realize you were such a Godzilla fan.
listen, we had like 4 VHSs when I was a kid, all that were taped off of live TV, and Godzilla was one of them. So all the other ones were religious movies, which is a different podcast. So
one could argue Godzilla is a religious movie.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. There's that time he dies and comes back after 3 days.
He's called Godzilla, man.
Oh, good point. Good point. Zilla, Hebrew for something. Yep. Good point. All right. We have Jess Hong, the actress that plays Jin, and she's the physicist. And I thought this was interesting. She's kind of a minor character in the beginning and then rolls into essentially the main character, which, most shows don't do that. In fact, Isa Gonzalez as Augie is almost like the main, and then the last couple episodes, she's just off cleaning wells. So
right.
we have Benedict Wong, which I would like to take a moment to talk about this gentleman. Mm-hmm. I would have watched this series if it was just him solving murders. Agreed. I found him compelling. He's from Marvel, the Marvel universe, right?
Yes, he plays, I think Wong in Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange. Okay. I will be the first one to admit that at a certain point I popped smoke and bailed on Marvel movies, so I don't know them all. But I thought he does a great job as kind of a ruffled, all I care about is my son and detectiving. And his character's name is Clarence, and he is like Wade's, I guess, right-hand dude. He does all the not dirty work, but he does the leg work for Wade.
Right.
And Thomas Wade is Liam Cunningham, who is who in Game of Thrones?
Liam Cunningham is
Davos
Seaworth. Yes,
the Onion Knight. Mm-hmm. And this actor could be in anything, and I would watch him. He's just very compelling.
He's pretty good. Yeah, he plays kind of that like smarmy, I don't know, like kind of know-it-all kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't know about smarmy. I just think like reliable with an accent. Just as an American, anyone with an accent, I'm just like, I bet that guy went to Cambridge or Oxford, which are schools I've heard of. We have John Bradley, our Samwell from Game of Thrones, playing Jack Rooney. Tom is a guy that loves crisps. How did you relate to this billionaire that created Pringles, I guess?
Yeah, that's the proper way to say, I guess, chips in British. I mean, I don't know. I liked him as Samwell Tarly in Game of Thrones, like kind of a bumbling buffoon, but like lovable. I felt like he was kind of trying to do that same character here, but just a rich version of him. I didn't like it.
This character felt like he went to America, discovered snack food, went back to the UK and was like, hey guys, guess what? Here's snack food. And the UK was like, here's $1 billion. We'll put you on a magazine. I know you had issues with his character. I was actually, and spoilers, when he was killed in this, I was actually disappointed because I felt like he brought some levity and comedy that made this show more enjoyable as to like the heavy people are hanging themselves from lampposts. Kids are dying by nanofiber. I felt like they needed a Jack Rooney in this, and to kill him off relatively early, I felt was not necessarily what my dark soul needed. But
yeah, I agree with that.
He was silly. I mean, he's not someone I would have been friends with in real life, but in the show, I enjoyed the comedy that he brought. And
I don't know, man. Free crisps and like energy drinks, a billionaire friend. I mean, I'd be friends with this guy.
Tom, I would never prostitute out my friendship for crisps and energy drinks. My body is a temple. All right. If this guy was an author or maybe a poet, then I'd be friends with him because I'm deep like that. You know me.
Big Chaucer fan.
Yeah, love Chaucer. I would have been. Yeah. Other than I think actually prostitutes. Anyways, let's go on. We have Jovan Adepo, who plays Saul, who becomes a wall facer. I have so many questions about
goodness.
Saul as a character. I have so many questions about what a wall facer is and why. I really like this actor. I thought he did a great job. What I was a little bit confused of is he is a great friend in this like friend group. And this is an interesting thing about this show, and they don't really explain it other than like all these were like the Oxford Five. They all hang out, but it seems like the world is really relying on a small friend group here. And Tom, you and I have a friend group that we all met in like middle school, and we're in our 60s now, and we still hang out. If the world was like, hey, Julian, Tom, your guys' friend group is going to save this world, I'd be like, oh, we're doomed. No, 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 no. Listen, we've got Andy and Dal, and we're in a lot of trouble. That's all.
If you need us to unsuccessfully try to hunt javelina, that's what we're good for. If you want us to camp around an area where javelina tend to exist, we got you.
Yeah. And so I thought Saul, I don't know if Saul's like a glue guy. I don't know where he comes in, but the show paints him as kind of like this shallow, like ladies' man. But then he's the one at Will's bedside. No one else is there. And maybe that's because they're all dead, but some of them are still alive. So like I thought the Saul character was a little bit strange to me in the fact that they made him to be kind of selfish, shallow, but also like he's the dude that when you're gonna hit the button 5 times and off yourself, he's gonna be in the hospital room with you. So I found his character, I did not really unpack it well, and I don't know if that's my fault or the show's fault.
I do think there is, and I could be completely off base, but I did listen to another podcast talking about this show, and I think in the book, there's only like a handful of characters, like 3 or 4 possibly, and what they try to do is like take some of those characters, like traits or plot lines, and then separate them into more characters.
Sure.
Because this place, I think, took place in China, versus like this one, it kind of resets it in Britain. So, I mean, there are definitely some changes, but I think that might be some of this, where the characters aren't necessarily given a whole lot out of maybe a specific plot point.
And that's true. I mean, Benioff and Weiss, like, adapting a seemingly undaptable, like, literary work is something that they do. That's George R. R. Martin famously was like, oh, no one could ever turn Game of Thrones into a show, and these guys tackled it. And I think they took on the same challenge here. I mean, you know, as someone who is an author, obviously the biggest challenge I've come up against is someone being able to tackle my literary work too, take it to big screen.
Can I promote your book?
To be published or, you know, have anyone read it. But anyways,
I can't promote your book.
No.
I want to promote your book.
No. This was a joke, Tom. You're supposed to be laughing right now.
I am laughing.
Is the laugh button not working on the podcast this time? Because typically I hit the button and you laugh. I don't know.
Jimmy's got to check that. Jimmy?
Yeah, Jimmy, can you reset that? I know it's been a long time, Jimmy. Jimmy's just been sitting in the studio waiting for us to come back. Jim, like that old guy in the Legend who sleeps for 100 years. Jimmy was just awoken. Anyways, other character, Alex Sharp, who plays Will Downing, who becomes
AKA the brain.
The brain, shot into space. I am extremely interested in talking about this storyline and like what your thoughts were. I don't know Alex Sharp as an actor. I thought like he was made for this role. And maybe, I don't know if people would argue it's one note. I'm not a author or a actor or an author, but I thought this guy did a great job. And I actually wish we spent more time with him as opposed to some of the other characters.
Yeah, he was essentially like the heart. I mean, ultimately we sent his brain into space, but he was the heart of the show. And I thought the guy acted very, very well and like really brought humanity to these characters.
You think that Jin should have jumped into the room and been like, forget the seeds, send his heart as well as his brain. And then she would have looked into camera and be like, vote this year. Election year 2028 or whatever. I don't know. That was a great point, Tom. He was the heart and eventually the brain. I can't believe I'm so excited to dive into some of this stuff. All right, let's get through the characters though, Julian. Focus. Thank you, Jimmy. Turn that light off. The focus light. He turned it on. All right, Rosalind Chow. She plays. Ready for it, Tom? Yi Wenji. Yi Wenji.
Close
and
enough.
this is she's played by two different actresses, older version, younger version. She's the one, and Tom, I totally missed this in the show. I did not realize she invited the aliens to Earth. I don't know if I missed a subtitle. I don't know if I was supposed to read it in Chinese, but when she sent the message out via the sun, I did not understand the gravity of it. I just know it was like a beautifully shot moment. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's happening, but it's cool. Did I miss subtitles? Did I miss a message? Like, did I miss the heaviness of that scene? Or was it all in Chinese?
No, I think she was like sitting at the computer monitor. I think they had told her like, "Hey, don't do this. Don't touch any buttons or whatever." After she got scolded, and then she kind of did it anyways, or she like reconfigured the satellite. But yeah, there is a sequence where it does like specifically say, I can't remember what it said on screen, but like, yeah.
So she gets a communication from the alien, and the alien says, "Hey, do not respond. We are looking to like invade a planet." And she eventually sends a message back that says, "Good, come here. We don't deserve to live," or like, "We deserve to be invaded." I missed all of that, and I don't know how. And I don't know if this is the show. There are so we watch everything with subtitles. There are certain shows that take a lot of translation, like Shogun, which is on Hulu right now. And if you watch it with subtitles, the subtitles play over the show's subtitles of the character speaking in a foreign language. And so I'm going to blame that as I watch this show.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. The last two characters we'll talk about is Mike Evans, who played the High Sparrow, and then Tatiana, who is like the aliens, eventually becomes the aliens' like hand on Earth. And your wife made a great point. The actress that plays Tatiana looks like the actress in,
Crazy Stupid Love.
Thank you. Crazy Stupid Love. And the whole time I watched the show, I was like, that actress is from something I know. Turns out, not the same actress, but doppelgangers. Definitely.
Yes, agreed.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
All right, Tom, I'm going to allow you to summarize the show in one sentence. Please do so now.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Aliens are coming because their planet died because it had 3 suns. Boom.
Boom. Boom. The 3-body problem. So, my children and I were just playing Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, which, just to clarify, is a video game. It's perfectly appropriate. Please don't write anyone. Goodness. My son, when he was younger, would be like, "Hey, Dad, you want to play Lovers?" And I was like, "Don't shorten it, son. Just say the whole game name." Anyways, my daughter and my son and I were playing Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time.
Semicolon? Okay.
Semicolon appropriate to say. Anyways, we just played a level where there were a bunch of planets with orbits and they pull your spaceship different ways. And I was like, "Hey, kids, this is just like the 3-body problem." And they were like, "Shut up, Dad. Run the engine so we can shoot aliens." So this is relevant to what's happening. But thank you for your summary. As we talked about this is like, Tom, other than like wool as hard sci-fi as you get? And I don't even know, like, I don't know if you throw Star Wars into this. Star Wars is a little bit different, but like, how hard sci-fi do you typically get? You love space. I know you love space, but
I do love me some space. I've read the like John Dies at the End series, like this book full of spiders and like whatever, where it deals with like it's wildly sci-fi with like the characters and like what kind of happens and alternate realities and all kinds of stuff. It's a super wild one. So I don't mind that. I feel like what I didn't love about this show, like once they got into the science, they started talking about like these sophons and quantum computers and how they can just literally see every and anything that happens on Earth. I thought that was just a bit much. Like, I I don't know. I think I'm all for sci-fi and I'm all for these aliens being like smarter than us, but when they can literally see simultaneously everything going on, then they're essentially just gods. So I didn't love that bit of sci-fi.
Yeah, no. Good point. I'm the exact opposite. As a religious person, I was like, "Oh, these are gods," and then I wrote a check for 10% of my income, and I mailed it to the Sophons in order to tithe.
What are they called again?
Sophons?
Sophons are like the actual like computer things that are like on Earth, but like what are they? The Santi. That's the name of this alien race.
Yeah. The Santi. They're governors in Florida. Here's where I'm at. I can't go like hard sci-fi. Like it's not where my brain operates at. I enjoy like The Martian, which I think does a great job, and then
it's real fi.
Andy Weir, well, easy. Andy Weir wrote a second book called Hail Mary, which is, I don't know, maybe popcorn sci-fi. I really enjoyed that book. When it gets to like aliens and like black holes, unless Christopher Nolan is feeding it to me, I don't know that I do well with it. So,
what about Josh Brolin?
Josh Brolin can feed me anything other than his lies about what he improv'd on No Country for Old Men, which I'm
just saying, out of range, he jumps into a timey-wimey hole.
He jumps into a void. I re-listened to our podcast. For those of you that don't know, we talked about Outer Range, which is coming out season 2 in May, and we will be talking about it. I listened to Josh Brolin on Smart Lists, and my opinion of Josh Brolin changed. But let's move on, Tom. Hard sci-fi, I have some trouble with. I like light sci-fi. I don't know. Once again, when we get to dimensions and things that are just tough to comprehend, my brain kind of goes to sleep, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh, Netflix wants me to watch the next one. So here's what I'll say. Like, I felt like this show very well acted. I enjoyed everyone in it. I feel like adapting something at a large scope is always difficult. These guys do it well. This felt like a show where this first season could have been like 2 seasons. Like we do some jumps in time and part of it is the Wade character, Liam Cunningham, who's like doing all the preventative of, hey, these aliens are coming and we need to defend ourselves. He has like so much authority. He's almost like a god character in it. And so there's no struggle on his end in terms of how he's getting things done. He literally has I have a button that I hit that just tells every government in the world of like, hey, aliens are coming, give me what I want. And so right. I don't know if that's how it is in the book. I just, at a large scale, I had trouble like appreciating. He's great as a character. Like anytime he walked in the room, he was fun. But I had trouble just on a scope level of appreciating that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's a trope-ish where it's this shadowy government figure that can do anything at any time, and you just don't really think about it. Like, I feel like he had a lot of information. He had the technology of these VR headsets, and I don't feel like they tried to do anything to, like, reverse engineer it. I don't know what he's playing at, but he's also kind of saying toward the end of this series, like, hey, I'm not going to pass off this knowledge to another generation so they can deal with it in 400 years. I'm going to be the one that's just waking up from hypersleep, I guess, every so often, and I'm going to take care of this all the way through, which I kind of appreciate, especially a show like this. Like, you can't be changing the characters every season or however they're going to do this. I don't know, but I like that there's going to be a through character.
It's just going to be Thomas Wade and that monkey waking up every couple of months to be like, hey, is the world still here? Cool. And then he's going to be like, oh, people are dressing like that? 3-piece suits are back in? Oh, come on. Skinny jeans? Oh, no. He's going to go sleep and he's going to come back and he's like, oh, great, mom jeans where the waist is up to the mid-chest. That's wonderful. And then he's going to go to sleep. Anyways.
I feel like my biggest gripe, though, with the show is, like, we're kind of talking about the sci-fi and the adaptation. Like, I agree with everything you're saying thus far. I feel like my problem with the show mainly is pacing, where it started off really cool, like the concept of them seeing the clock tap down and you don't know what's going to happen, and like the mystery they put in that first episode, like, it definitely got me. But then I thought it just slowed down significantly until they got to that boat scene, which I've got thoughts about that. And then even after that, it slows down to a grind until the end of the show. And even then, I didn't think the penultimate episode set up the finale very well, and then the finale goes on its own completely different wall facer rabbit hole that I didn't see coming, nor did I really enjoy as much.
Sure. I do think, and once again, so Game of Thrones was what, 6-7 seasons?
Yeah, 6 seasons in a movie.
So I feel like, and I don't think this has been renewed for a second season as at the point of us.
I think it has.
I don't think officially it has.
No? Oh, okay.
You could look it up, and I could be wrong. I've never been wrong before. But I think if you told these guys, hey, we're going into this with 6 seasons, I feel like this solves this season's issue in terms of like scope and focus. I think it's also interesting that we're dealing with a 400-year universal problem, and the characters we're dealing with are like 5 college friends. Like, I understand the character-driven notion of a show where you want to like focus on characters and care about characters, but with a scope this big, it's difficult to do, and they tried to thread that line. I would also argue that the characters I cared the most about, they sent to Mexico to fix wells, they stabbed in their apartment, and then they sent the brain into space. So I don't know, although they've kept Jin, who I find like a very interesting character. She went from, I don't know, the way she went from kind of not on board to like hyper focused Wade's right hand person was an interesting arc. But I'm with you. I feel like if they told him, hey, you've got 6 seasons to do this is paced differently, and we get to work some things out. And I don't even know, like, is this first season supposed to cover the first book? Is this a 3-season show?
I don't know. I didn't do the research. And to your point, like you said earlier, this show has not officially been picked up for a second season as of the time of this recording. So yeah, who knows if we'll get more. I feel like it's a big enough show. They probably put enough money in it. Netflix generally, well, I was going to say Netflix generally lets things continue on, but we've seen shows we've covered like 1899 that was fantastic that got canceled. So who knows what they'll do.
I would argue 1899 is a better show than this, and probably a smaller budget, and they canceled it. So I don't have a ton of hope for this. In fact, I would go on a limb and say every Netflix show we've podcasted about has been canceled. So maybe it's our fault, yes. Tom. Tom, as a guy who loves using his Oculus and loves VR, what did you think of the VR elements of this show? Which I just... I love the noise you just made. So here's what I'm going to say. We were like 2 episodes in, and you and I just exchanged like a quick text message. Like, hey, what'd you think? And you said something about, the VR stuff is dumb. Or, you said it more elegantly than that. I think you quoted Yates. I remember then replying, what VR stuff? And then I went back and I was like, oh, when they put the weird like superhero Wonder Woman headband on, that's VR. And it like blew my mind. I was like, oh, I wasn't even thinking VR. I was thinking more like they were transported somewhere to operate. So, Tom, the floor is yours. The VR, you have the headset on, the volume's turned up, your pulse is racing. Talk the VR.
I'm on level 1. I mean, the design of the headsets were undeniably awesome. Like, I'm sure they were probably a pain on set because they probably just were fingerprint magnets, but I loved like the concept and how they were seemingly built perfectly for everybody's head that puts them on. They were cool. And as you first start to get into it, I'm like, okay, this is kind of neat. But the more they went on with the VR stuff, I found so much of the scenes laughable. Like, I get the concept. It's the aliens trying to find smart enough people that can solve this quote-unquote 3-body problem, and I guess they're going to tell them what's going on, and I'm just them. I don't really understand the motivation, but I thought all the dialogue, I thought the setups for like the scenes of each of these levels were silly. I mean, when that one dude screams to tell everybody to rehydrate, like I couldn't help but just giggle. it was goofy. I didn't love it.
I also did not love the VR stuff because they were like, hey, I know this is a sci-fi show. We're going to bring some like fantasy elements to it, and everyone's going to dress like they're in the Middle Ages or like Imperial Japan or China. Like, I don't know. Yes, it was strange. It was also a little tongue-in-cheek. Everyone was like named after a scientist. And so you're wondering, like, okay, are those other players like in the world that are wearing headsets and they're engaging in this problem solving together, or is that the Santi just like play? Because in one of them, it's Jin and Jack like talking to two other scientists that are also giving their theories. Like, were those other players that essentially
No, I think it
lost?
was literally supposed to be like Turing and Einstein. It wasn't Einstein, but it was like supposed to be two actual scientists that I think they knew they were popular scientists on Earth, and they wanted like their VR player to more or less play against these smart minds.
Sure. Listen, I recently watched Oppenheimer. It would have been nice for Cillian Murphy to show up in the VR, but
It's Cillian Murphy. We've been saying it wrong the whole time, by the way.
he's never called me out on it, so I think I'm okay.
The polite thing would be to just keep calling him Cillian.
Sure. Yeah, until he notices. I thought it was interesting only in the fact that when they concluded a level, it was like, hey, guess what? This level was all about saving the planet, not through mysticism, but science. And you're like, okay, well, that hurts us mysticism people a little bit, but whatever. And then it's like, oh, it's not about saving the planet, it's about saving the people. And you're like, okay, got it.
Climate change isn't real. We get it.
Yes, yeah, the Earth is flat. I'm all there. There's no such thing as space. As a guy like that, I had trouble with this whole show, just from the get-go. I thought those things were... But yeah, I don't know. And also, as a guy that hates grinding video games, grinding in the sense that, like, you die constantly until you learn a lesson, video games should not be a chore. So, honestly, if they had sent me one of these headsets, I would have put it on, someone would have cut my throat immediately, and I would have been like, okay, well, I'm not paying the monthly subscription for this, so where's my Switch? I'll play with my kids. Video games.
Yeah. You'll play Lovers with your kids.
Oh, goodness. This has gone so poorly. And the only thing I'll say about the VR stuff is, like, on a visual level, I thought there were several things that went on that were cool. And I would say if I read the books, it's kind of like you read Lord of the Rings, then you go see the Lord of the Rings movies, and you're like, oh, like, that's how I pictured it. That's not how I pictured it. Oh, that's cool. I would assume for the people that read these books, because this was like a sci-fi, the Hugo Award, I think, is the biggest like sci-fi book award. This book did win that, so I know it was popular, or at least this series was popular. And so I did think there were a couple of scenes like where they use like the army as a human computer, where it's doing like binary code. Giggled
the whole way through.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. That was so silly.
Because you were picturing being down there and you were like, oh, I've been part of a choreographed dance before, and this would be so difficult.
How do they know when to spin their little thing?
Right. No. I mean, if you watch like the Super Bowl halftime show, you're like, how does everyone know to move in that direction? Or you go to a baseball game and they flip all the signs up and it shows something. You're like, how do they know? Or how do you know when to lift your shirt up and it spells Yankees? You know, all difficult. I don't know. There were certain scenes that I enjoyed, and the VR stuff I felt like visually was cool, other than the nudity. I'm on record.
Could have gone without that.
Human body should always be clothed. It should be three-bodied clothed and hydrated. That's exactly right. As I mentioned, some of the VR stuff I thought was visually cool. I also felt like there were some like keynote moments in the show that were just like standout scenes. And I think you and I would agree, and I don't remember exactly what episode it is, but I felt like the one that they probably spent the most money on and looked the most interesting was a freighter ship or a oil tanker ship being cut into multiple pieces, and also being filmed like a horror movie. You mentioned at the top of the pod, Tom, you had some thoughts on this. So let's talk through that scene.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's the Benioff and Weiss. I think when they did the Game of Thrones books or show, they had always wanted to make sure they can get far enough in the show to be able to show the Red Wedding. And I think essentially that's maybe what they did with this book. Like they knew this scene was in the book and they wanted to do it because it's essentially what this is. It's just mass murder. Like, I don't know. Like I get it's a shock value and it's filmed like horror. And I don't know, it's like Resident Evil laser style things that are cutting people in half. But it's just gruesome, and there's kids on here. There's innocent people on here that are essentially just like brainwashed or indoctrinated into this world. I mean, the idea that you need to rid of them in this manner was just wild. I think it was just shown for the sake of being shown because it looked cool on screen, but I didn't like it. And I also didn't like our characters like Jin, who goes through this and sees like the devastation that is going on with, you know, Liam Cunningham's character and Thomas Wade and like the lengths they'll go, and she's still like on board with all of it. I mean, I don't know. I didn't love it. It looked cool, I guess, but I didn't love it.
Yeah, this seemed like, from a concept point of view, it's like, hey, what if there were nano threads that would literally cut a ship without noticing in half? And it was a little bit weird that the show was like, hey, guess what? There's a daycare on this ship, and we're going to spend some time. Oh, we're going to spend about 30 minutes. You're going to see all the kids finger paint their favorite animals. And then we're going to slice and dice them like the chopper on the Hope Shopping Network. I thought it looked cool. You have to shut your brain down in terms of, hey, they showed us a bunch of kids before this whole thing got cut together. It's also like, hey, we're doing this so that the hard drive that Mike Evans has doesn't get destroyed, but you're also taking a real gamble that Mike Evans or hard drive doesn't get cut by the nanofibers.
It made no sense. Yeah, the logic was dumbfounding.
It made exactly no sense. Why wouldn't you just stop the ship, like raid it? A lot of things could have happened, but this definitely felt like a flex. If I turn off my brain that cares about humans, it was super cool in terms of a visual watch. I'm not a horror movie guy. This played just like a horror movie guy where the dude with the knife is slowly making his way towards his victims. Brutal, visually stimulating, something that I would certainly watch every night to fall asleep to, obviously. But yeah, I'm with you. It was like, hey, how brutal can we make this? And are you guys interested in watching something super violent? So
yeah, and it was like done for the shock value. And going back to your point at the very beginning, like had this been a show that released each week, like this episode, I imagine would have gotten a lot more like people talking about it because it has loads of shock value. It's similar to the Red Wedding where you never really kind of saw it coming and it's just mass devastation. Could have been more impactful. When it's like, oh, I could just click the button and watch the next one, it just, you know, kind of falls in and out.
I am waiting for the season 2 where Augie is a superhero that's just constantly killing people with nanofibers. So I'm excited for that.
Instead of piano wire, she uses her nanofibers.
Yep, she garrotes people with nanofiber, and when their head falls off, she goes, "Oops." That's her catchphrase. Oops. All right, let's move on to something more heartfelt. Tom, I love a mission control scene. I love a scene where a bunch of people in front of terminals, a spaceship is flying through space. In this case, it's a brain attached to a parachute being propelled by nuclear bombs. And you got to wonder, how are we going to defend ourselves if all our nuclear bombs are blown up in space? Honestly, is no one... how are we going to defend ourselves if we give up all our nuclear bombs? Once again,
Listen,
I watched Oppenheimer.
we gave up.
Big fan. Big fan of big explosions.
I'm pretty sure we only gave up like what 400 or 500 nuclear bombs. We've got plenty more, buddy. Don't worry.
Oh, thank God. Thank you. Thank you for reassuring me that our national defense is still in place.
What's the deal with the seeds? Why did she push for the seeds? Does that come up later? Are we going to see this guy's brain somewhere else? Like, I don't. We put so much effort into it. There's got to be more to it.
No, I don't think it is. I think what it's supposed to show is that Jin comes to the realization that she also loved Will, and that this is her like trying to do something personal for him. I think I don't think we're going to see a scene where he is on another planet with a hoe, and by that I mean a farming implement, making spicy foods. I think that was just the humanity of Jin, who convinced a dude that loved her to kill himself. She is trying to do that. And I also think you need Wade every once in a while to do the likable thing, because otherwise he's just a bureaucrat that is hitting the alien budget button and doing whatever he wants. So, but I did find this scene very compelling. I honestly didn't know whether or not it was going to succeed or fail. When it failed, I didn't find it devastating because we haven't gotten into it yet, but I felt the Will character was pretty compelling. So the idea of his brain being lost in space for 1,000 years, I'm assuming George Clooney is going to show up and show him how to solve it.
Yeah, he's floating around there somewhere.
Yeah, he's still floating out there. Him and Sandy Bullock. But yeah. The other scene I want to talk about is the You Are Bugs scene. Tom, it's this year. It's 1999. You and I, in the present, 1999. All of a sudden, across every screen, it says "You Are Bugs." Are you thinking it is a promotion for some sort of knockoff Pixar movie, where Jerry Seinfeld is the main character, or do you string yourself up with a series of other people to a lantern and leave this mortal plane?
Well, it's more than just saying you are bugs, right? It's like those so fun quantum computer things, like, I don't know, it's kind of like Inception style, throwing the Earth like into the sky, and then like eyeballs are up there, like the Eye of Sauron. Like it was pretty wild, and I can imagine people like freaking out about it. But I mean, does the whole population eventually hears that this is going to happen in 400 years, right? That's my other big gripe with this. Like, we're talking about a problem that is multiple generations away, and maybe it's an analogy for like climate change and how we refuse to do anything, even though all the signs are there that we need to be doing stuff. Like, I don't know if that's kind of what they're playing at, but yeah, I don't know about mass suicide pacts because of this.
And I'm referring to the scene where I agree with you. I think, once again, problems, future Julian problems or future Julian problems.
Exactly.
And guess what? Julian's not going to be around in 400 years unless this smoothie diet that I'm on really works out, because it might propel me 400 years from now. It's just flaxseed and cucumbers in a blender with some ice. Not too much ice, because there's a lot of calories in ice. But the idea of like aliens existing, 400 years they're going to invade, we all hang ourselves on a lamppost. The scene was like devastating, but also I was like, hey folks, we've got some time. Like, maybe don't jump to those conclusions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I almost feel like in Independence Day, the movie, all those people got on that rooftop and they were like, hey aliens, let's party. Yeah. And then they get zapped with a laser. Like, little bit different, but 400 years from now, I don't know. I found this scene very, like, it is embedded in my brain. I can still picture it. It was shot really well. It's devastating. I think we see it from Benedict Wong's point of view. But I also was like, who's hanging themselves like on a lamppost? And is it coordinated? Is it like, okay, you go first, then I'll go? Or everyone on three? Like, how does that work? I don't know. I've never been a part of an inside joke or a group suicide. I hope to be one day, but Next
like
time
the
that
idea-
comet comes by, you know?
Oh yes, the idea of say like you are bugs. I did like the ending of this series or this season where it kind of says like, hey, we've been trying to eradicate bugs or cicadas, and like bugs are resilient. So like the idea of aliens seeing us as bugs, like being able to exterminate us is not as easy as it might sound. Like I kind of like that little analogy they did there.
Sure. Yeah. You liked humankind being a bug. You loved that. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah. We're definitely bugs to some more inferior, or not inferior, but smarter species out there.
Sure. Like
something.
trees. Like trees.
Oh yeah. Trees are dolphins.
We already talked about Ye sending the message into the sun, and I made a joke here about sundialing it, and then I wrote "get it" because
Nailed
she's
it.
like calling someone through the sun. Get it? Yeah. And let us talk about the. Let's talk about the Will character, Tom, because I've mentioned to you that I felt this character. So Will is the part of the group who never felt smart enough, was in love with Jin, but like never expressed his love. He took a teaching job, and so he's always felt, I guess, like he never. Or actually, he explains he feels like he reached his potential, but everyone else felt like he kind of settled. He's then convinced by his true love to become a brain to be shot in space. I felt like a guy sitting on a weird English beach, which sucked because it was covered in rocks, and like contemplating death. I felt like this actor did an incredible job. I felt like someone gripping with their mortality and the end. I thought all of this was very interesting, especially because he's best friends with a billionaire who he thinks is obviously going to outlive him, who doesn't, and then he inherits. I was really rooting for Will, and I thought his storyline, in terms of characters I was invested in, obviously I was invested with Augie. Who wouldn't be invested in Augie with that jawline? But next choice was Will. On a very deeper level. I don't know. I enjoyed that. The only time they lost me was when he's in a hospital bed saying that C.S. Lewis was a terrible writer. And then I was like, send his butt into space, because how dare he say anything about C.S. Lewis. But I enjoyed that storyline, and I enjoyed that actor very much.
Yeah, and like the concept of him being like questioned by, is it Wade kind of at the end, where he's like making him fill out this questionnaire if we're going to send your brain into space. Like, do you
Swear a loyalty oath?
Yeah, swear a loyalty oath to the human race. And he's like, no, I'm not going to swear an oath to like a potential other species or whatever alien race that is better than us. Which I think is kind of part of the reason why Wade says like, oh, he's the perfect guy, because like that's the kind of mind that these Santi are going to want to pick up and dissect and look into or whatever. So again, I thought there were some cool concepts with it, but I mean, if you would have told me the show had a floating brain in space that's being propelled by nuclear explosions with seeds and stuff on it, like I would have told you, okay, I'm not watching this show. Like, it is absolutely bonkers of a story and plot line, but he was a good character.
He was a good character. The other thing I thought was interesting is they do these weird scenes where he's on like a paper boat in the rain at sea, and the way those are shot are like very beautiful and like lonely, and I don't know. I really enjoyed his character and his storyline. I will say that Saul is with him as he's like picking the numbers to kill himself, and then Jin realizing, because Wade lets her know that he's the one that bought her a star. Which, Tom, I'm still waiting on my star.
You'll be waiting a while, buddy.
Get on it. And so she like shows up at the end of his surgery, and the reveal is it's already done. He's being carted away in a cooler, and Saul is standing there staring into an autopsy room, essentially, where they did the surgery.
Yep.
And my wife was like, I'm sorry, did Saul just sit around and watch his friend get cut up and his brain removed? Because that is rough. And no wonder you'd want to become a wall facer after that, because window facing into an autopsy room sounds terrible.
It was very interesting when they kind of showed that, how they were seemingly a part of this surgery. And maybe he helped. Who knows?
Oh, you think? He was like, hey, I've never run a saw before. Can I get in there? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. He's already gone. And he's like, oh, but his brain is intact. You're going to freeze it and he's going to live. And they're like, oh, no. That's not going to work at all. We're just, listen, they just paid us to do this. No, this is all dumb.
Going through the motions.
Yeah, management, they don't know what they're doing. Last thing, let's talk about the frozen monkey scene where the monkey comes to life. I thought I was in a Planet of the Apes commercial. I was like, what are we doing here? Why? I mean, I know animal actors are difficult. We see it in all of these shows. The beginning of the last True Detective series, the beginning of No Country for Old Men. Why can't we get real apes to be frozen and brought back to life? Why are there no ape actors? Tom, the floor is yours.
The unions, man. The monkey and ape union is very strong.
I've always been anti-union. You know me. I don't know.
And I'm with you though. Like the CGI was like laughable, and it seemed like you could practically get a trained monkey to do some of these things, or not monkey, I guess an ape to do this. But yeah, it was funny, and I didn't really know the take of it. Like they ultimately have the ape, but like take a bite of banana, then puke it all up. So like I thought it was supposed to take that this doesn't work yet, that they're still working out the kinks. I don't know, but it didn't seem necessary. Just tell me that they figured it out and then move on.
This was them telling us that monkeys don't actually like bananas.
Yes, that's it.
Where was the monkey in the lobby that worked at the hotel from that 90s movie that we all watched as kids? Where was he? Something checks in.
Dustin checks in?
Yeah. I'm sure that guy needs work. Why can't we bring him in on this?
I'm pretty sure he's in the Umbrella Academy show. He got a little bit older, and then he became a head of a children's mutant superhero boarding school.
Chasing that guy in the yellow hat. And all of this leads to what you pointed out earlier, where Wade's going to freeze himself on and off. And that felt very selfish. He's like, I'm going to outlive all of you. And they're like, no, we're going to unplug the machine while you go to sleep. So good luck. All right, here are the questions I have, Tom.
Go.
If the VR game was presented to you, if you found it in a box and it said, you have been invited to play the game, Thomas the third, would you play the VR game?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. As long as it's mine. Like, if it's not mine, I'm getting my head sliced off. Like, I feel like Samuel Tarly puts on that helmet way too many times when he's constantly getting killed.
Because he feels it, right? That's part of it. It's like, oh, this is like a neuro link where, like, you literally feel your jugular going. Once again, I'd be a big no thank you. Tom, do we care what happens in 400 years?
No. Climate change proof.
No, we do not care because we will not be around. We are not an Old Testament character that lives for 900 years. We are people that are probably not going to make it past 52 is what I'm going to say. Why is Saul picked as a wall facer? I don't feel like we spent enough time on Saul. Saul is a great friend to Will, a terrible lover to random women who he seems to take home, not a great lover to Augie, and also he becomes a wall facer and he doesn't want to be. And then he's wearing a bulletproof hoodie, which I was like, that's not bulletproof. But why was Saul picked as a wall facer?
I don't know what a wall facer is. I'm assuming the Blair Witch kids, they know about wall facing. Isn't that kind of what they did at the end of the movie? So maybe that's the genesis of it.
Tom. Can't help you out. Sorry, buddy.
Okay. But yeah, I don't get it. I'm sure this is a great thing for the book readers. They know all about the wall facer and what happens here. But they spend like 70% of the episode, the finale episode, of him constantly saying, I don't want to be a wall facer. I don't want to be a wall facer. And everybody saying, oh yeah, wink. You're definitely not a wall facer. Wink, wink. It was just too much. And I mean, I don't know. Like the Saul character was fine enough in the show, but clearly the Santi, I guess, want him dead. I also don't get the idea of this super smart alien race wants this guy dead, so we're gonna take over a smart car and try to run him over. Like you're all seeing, all omniscient. Like you could probably take this guy out very, very easily. So I don't understand why they're trying to save him at all costs here.
So the impression I got from the show is I don't think like the humans know why he's important, but they are assuming that since the Sante want him dead, he should become a wall facer. And the idea being they can't read minds. And so if they give him carte blanche in order to do whatever he wants because he is important to the Santi. So therefore he's important to them.
But essentially the biggest thing here is that the Santi, as we learn here, they can't coexist with humans because humans can lie. And you can make an argument that like the idea that we can lie is a massive benefit for us in like the fight and survival for humanity. Like it's a race that can't lie to each other. Like I guess that's kind of what they're playing at a bit here.
No, I agree. And the fact that the Santi was like, oh, these kids stories that are like legends and fairy tales aren't real. Mike Evans should have been like, oh, you guys are dumb because, yeah, you know, I've been reading you Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Bears can't talk. Are you an idiot? Like, Mike Evans should have been like, guess what, Santi? We're coming to invade you. So, like, I don't know. It was... The way it was shot was cool. It was very like ominous. She stopped. Anytime someone stops answering the phone is always terrifying. Certainly in my business, as a professional podcaster, also in my day job as a telemarketer. Here's what I want to say about Saul. I thought the character was interesting. I did not understand the two sides where he was shallow and then like a good friend. I mean, I guess those things can exist in people, but I felt a little bit confused. I would have felt better had, when Will was saying terrible things about C.S. Lewis, Saul just gone over and killed him then in order to defend C.S. Lewis. I felt like that would have really kind of rounded out the character.
Yeah,
you know,
but you're not an author, so...
No, I'm not. But when he was like, oh, C.S. Lewis was a terrible writer, the next scene should have been Saul strangling, being like, have you read The Great Divorce? Have you read, you know, Until We Have Faces? And just like, I would have been like, all right, this show's the best ever. I don't know. Felt like unnecessary shots, but this is not my C.S. Lewis podcast. Let's talk about the Alien Friends Party. Tom, would you have tended, if someone was like, hey, aliens are coming in 400 years, we can help them or we can not help them. Are you showing up to the cocktail party? Are you sending a letter that says, hey, I regretfully decline, my kid is sick? Like, how are you responding to the alien friend party?
It depends what's on the menu. Like, what kind of appetizers?
Well, you're going to be raided by the FBI or some weird government agency.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. I mean, do we have crab cakes? Is it like salmon, chicken, or like? I mean, I need to know what's on the dinner menu. That's going to play into my.
All right, I got you. Okay, hors d'oeuvres. All right, shrimp cocktail. All right, main meal is chicken cordon bleu. Okay. Dessert, cheesecake with an avocado frosting. Are you showing up?
No, I love avocado, but an avocado frosting sounds terrible.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck to you. You're not being raided by the police, and you get to go scot-free.
Are you going to this party? Are you making signs?
Oh, yeah. And I'm being like, hey, are you going to eat your avocado frosting as I walk around the room?
Can't get enough of it.
Are we? What did you think of Augie's storyline? Augie, like, so she is almost our main character in the beginning because she has the countdown clock. She shuts down her business and doesn't explain why. I found all of that a little bit laughable. But then she kind of disappears in the last couple episodes, and I understand, like, the book probably doesn't cover these things, but she ends her storyline being like, hey, let's filter your water with nanofiber. Also, I'm the one that made the parachute that failed, that Will's going to be 1,000 years brain in space. Like, what'd you think of the Augie line?
I don't like. I liked her at the beginning with the concept of like the countdown timer or whatever, and these Sophons are putting that in front of her. Or I guess they also made like the lights and stuff blink in the sky. I liked that concept of not knowing what that is, and that's driving her crazy. And then ultimately, like Benedict Wong kind of like finding her and like them teaming up for a bit. But yeah, I just don't know. Like the whole nanofiber thing, just the science seemed a bit wacky to me, that she made it seem like, oh, you could just take this Brita filter and screw it onto any sort of water sequence or water filter or faucet and you're good to go. Like, it's just not how it works, I guess. But I don't know. This is sci-fi. Maybe I'm picking on the wrong things. But I didn't love her character. I also didn't love how like they made this whole bit about her and Saul like being, I don't know, former lovers or whatever it was, but then we don't get really anything else from it. They both just kind of like go their separate ways. I thought they were going to kind of try to tie that in, similar to how like the Jin and the brain relationship was.
Sure. Yeah, I don't feel like that paid off at all in terms of that relationship. Once again, I feel like they played Saul two ways. Tom, the other question I will ask you is, if you had to read a book to aliens, what book would you read to the aliens on your billionaire oil tanker with the largest child care that anyone's ever seen?
How to Serve Mankind.
That's a book? Who wrote that? Is that
I'm pretty sure it's a Twilight Zone episode. To Serve Mankind. And It's not like to serve as to help us. It's to literally serve us as like we're food.
Oh, wow. Okay. Goodness. You and I would be on different boats. All right. That's
what are you
fine.
reading?
I would read every Cormac McCarthy.
Book?
No, I would read every Cormac McCarthy book. I would start with No Country for Old Men. I would read it to them 3 times. Then I would read C.S. Lewis, not the Chronicles of Narnia, because I'm kind of agreeing with Will. Some of those are not great books, but this is not recorded, so I won't get in trouble for it. And then lastly, I would read them the good book just to confuse them. And then I would explain the concept of faith, which is very difficult to explain, although something I believe in. Anyways, the aliens would not show up if I was reading them books. Let's say that.
You would bore them.
And then Hungry Caterpillar would be the last one, and then they'd be real confused.
It's the Very Hungry Caterpillar.
If
Hungry Hippos is what you're thinking of.
The game I was not given until I was 18 because my parents hated me.
You can play it at Dave & Buster's now, full scale. It's
really?
Great. You can ride the hippos.
Ride the hippos. Interesting. That sounds like my bachelor party. All right. So, Tom, the world is in a situation where all these screens say you are bugs, the stars flash. In this day and age, aren't we all just like, hey, this is like Elon Musk, this is fake news? None of us are believing this, right? It feels like everyone bought into this very quickly.
Yeah. It's a deep fake. It's AI. It's whatever. Whatever people want to tell themselves.
Yeah.
Facts aren't real.
All right. Last question, Tom. Are we rooting for humanity, or are we on Yee's side, where we're sending the message that's like, hey, listen, come invade us because we're terrible? Like, where are we at on this?
I mean, I'm 50-50. I could see both sides. I mean, I want to know more about these Santi.
50-50. I'm human, and I'm 50-50. Sweet Lord. Oh, that's a terrible answer, Tom. Oh, no.
Listen, we know these people have a 3-body problem, right? They're struggling. They've got eras of beauty and then eras of chaos. So they're just trying to survive like everybody else.
Yeah, so but Yee's comment is, hey, we are so terrible as humans that we deserve to be conquered. Surely we're not at that point. No? Oh, no. Oh, no.
I like the way they set it up, though, like where she's seeing the devastation of like the
communist China,
the government. Yeah, exactly. Like killing her father just for teaching science, and then she sees like the effects of deforestation and like just like all these kind of things, and saying like how humanity is just literally killing its planet. So I mean, I get like the gist of why she's doing it. Obviously, of course, I don't think the idea of inviting people to invade us is the greatest idea, but I mean, the other argument can be made, and it's like happened like many times in human civilization, right? Where a smarter group of people coming in are going to conquer and invade and likely wipe out a less advanced species, race, whatever it is. So like that idea of them coming to then potentially like coexist with us, I think was seemingly what the people that invited them ultimately wanted, that maybe they can coexist. But I think Yee's perspective is definitely, we don't deserve to live, take our place, essentially.
Sure. All right. So here's where I'm at, Tom.
Hear it.
Since you're going to take
Close
the
this
half,
out.
you're going to take the half, or the glass half empty. I'll take the glass half full. While humanity is flawed, I would say on a day-to-day basis, if you don't read the news, if you turn off your phone and don't read the news, the people that you meet on a day-to-day basis are mostly good and are deserving of not being squashed by bugs. So I would like to pay an exorbitant tax rate so that Wade has a lot of money in order to nuke these Sante as they come in. That's where I'm at, in order to save my neighbor who doesn't pay his taxes. Anyways, I'm glad we got to talk through this, Tom. I enjoyed the show. Was it, when I get my Emmy vote, am I going to root for it for an Emmy vote? No. But were there some questionable things where I was like, wait, what? Yes. But, for a show that you can turn your brain off and just kind of watch and
allow it float into space.
And allow it to float into space. I enjoyed it, certainly.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, this is a show that, now that you said that it hasn't officially gotten picked up for a second season, I would not be surprised, even though this does have like the weight of Benioff and Weiss at like the helm. I don't think it was compelling enough for me to want more. I don't know what their thoughts are. I mean, I know there's 3 books, right? So maybe they want to do 3 seasons, but I don't know if they covered the extent of all of book 1. And this is not like when I watched Game of Thrones, I watched the first season and immediately picked up the books and just started reading them because I was just so compelled by the lore, the story, the characters, the world. I don't care about the world building really that they did here. Like, there just wasn't enough in it to grab me. And I would much rather see a show that had, I think, a lot better mystery and a lot better character building and acting, like 1899, survive and see more of that show than I would this one. So it was fine, to your point. Like, it passed the time, but I think there's a lot of other prestige television. Like you mentioned Shogun earlier. I think that's been an incredible series. And I think there's some other better stuff out there that you can probably spend some time with.
I agree. But I loved getting your take on this. I'm glad we talked through it. I will just leave here and go watch some Bluey episodes and feel good about life and humans. And, I guess, dogs, Blue Heeler dogs. But for those of you that, I don't know, if this is your first exposure to us, we have a back catalog. We've done shows like 1899, which we talked about, which is a Netflix show. Outer Range did a first season. It's on Amazon Prime. They're releasing a second season. The After Party was a Apple show that we really enjoyed. And we did start as a Ted Lasso show, and we really enjoyed season 1 and some of 2 and 3. But in the end, Lasso was important because caring about humans and doing the right thing and loving people was important to us, and we enjoyed that show. And so when we come back, Tom, we will be doing a show that is just as bonkers as this one, which will probably be Outer Range. But if you'd like to reach us and have things that we missed, or you'd like to talk about Isa Gonzalez, Augie, you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. Tom, talk us through the other stuff.
Yeah, tell us your favorite part of Ambulance.
It's where Jake Gyllenhaal dies.
Goodness.
Spoiler.
But yeah, find us on social media at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Let us know what you thought about the show. I think this show is divisive in terms of what people thought. I think overall it was actually reviewed pretty well from like Rotten Tomatoes, both from critics and kind of general audience. So I don't know, maybe we're off base. And if any of our listeners have read the book and there's some interesting tidbits maybe we didn't touch on that are from the book, definitely let us know. But we'll keep pushing out some pods. We probably won't. Maybe we'll do a handful in between now and the release of Outer Range, which I think comes out like May 15th, 16th, something like that. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
Wonderful. My last request is, if you would like us to talk about Bluey episodes, please reach out to us at Team Binge Podcast or leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. 5 stars. Please review Bluey. We will talk about every Bluey episode if there's an audience for it. This is the only show that I care about right now. It devastates my soul. But for Team Binge, I have been Julian.
And I have been Tom. Till next time, everybody.